The sky burned red as the battle raged above the desert of Drovak. Massive ships hovered like angry gods, firing beams that carved the mountains apart. Dust and ash filled the air. On the ground, the human soldier named Cade ran between falling rocks and broken machines, his helmet cracked and suit scorched. He had no orders, no backup, and no reason to be alive except one. A voice had reached his comms channel, weak, broken, and full of fear. It had said, "Please, save my father." Cade didn't ask who she was. The voice trembled with desperation, and that was enough. He moved fast through fire and smoke. Alien bodies lay scattered around him, some friends, some enemies, all dead. The girl's voice guided him through the ruins. Her name was Rishara, and she spoke with a noble tone, even while afraid. Her people, the Valari, were known for pride and elegance, not begging. But now one of them had begged a human. He found the elder hidden beneath a broken transport. His breathing was shallow, his skin pale green and cold. This was no soldier. This was a scholar, a leader maybe. The enemy had left him for dead. Cade pulled debris off the man's legs and gave him oxygen. It wasn't enough. The elder had lost too much blood. Still, Cade gritted his teeth and lifted the man onto his back, ignoring his own pain. Blaster fire echoed behind him. 2 enemy drones hovered above the rocks. Cade dropped low, shielding the old alien with his body. He fired twice. One drone exploded, the other clipped his arm, but he kept moving. He had one mission now: get this man out alive. Whatever war had started didn't matter. Whoever started it didn't matter. Cade had made a choice. Save the life. Then ask questions. He reached an extraction point where an old Valari shuttle stood hidden beneath camouflage. It was not his, but Rishara had given him the access code. As the doors opened, and he carried her father inside, the girl appeared on the screen. Her eyes were wide, silver like the stars. She gasped when she saw her father's condition, but also when she saw the human who carried him. She whispered, "You did it." Cade nodded, too tired to speak. His arm was bleeding, but he ignored it. The shuttle's AI took control, lifting them toward orbit. As the fires below faded, Rishara sat in silence. She didn't thank him in words. Instead, she looked at him like he was something strange, something dangerous, something sacred. They reached a hidden Valari base among the stars. Medics rushed, and her father was taken away quickly. Rishara stepped out of the shuttle and walked up to Cade. She stood tall, wrapped in royal armor that shimmered blue and silver. Her voice was quiet but firm. "By Valari custom," she said, "you have done more than save a life. You've saved a bloodline." Cade raised an eyebrow. "I just did what anyone should do." She shook her head slowly. "No. You touched my father's blood with your hands. You shed your own to protect him. You entered fire for a Valari elder. Do you not know what that means among my people?" Cade stared, confused. The girl took a breath. Her hand rested over her heart, and she looked at him with a strange mix of fear and duty. "It means," she said, "I am yours." He froze. "What?" "By ancient law," she said, voice trembling but clear, "you have claimed me." Cade blinked, thinking he had misheard her. "Yours?" he repeated, confused and still bleeding from his arm. He wasn't sure what kind of alien law this was, but the seriousness in her eyes left no room for misunderstanding. She wasn't joking. Rishara, daughter of a Valari elder, stood before him and declared herself his. Not because she wanted to, but because her people's ancient law demanded it. She stepped closer. "Our customs are old," she said, her voice low. "Outdated maybe, but they bind us still. When a non-Valari risks his life for a royal elder, the elder's firstborn must repay it, not with money, not with words, but with herself." Cade stepped back. "That's not... I didn't save your father to get anything in return." "I know," she said, and her silver eyes looked almost sad. "But that's why the law is even, stronger now. He didn't know what to say. Around them, Valeri soldiers stared in silence. None interrupted. None dared to speak. They had all seen what he had done on the battlefield. They had seen him emerge from the fire carrying the elder. To them, the law was already written in stone. Rishara belonged to him now. Cade looked down at his burnt armor and torn gloves. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly. "No," she replied, "but now I am bound, unless you release me, which you are allowed to do." He looked at her again, and for the first time noticed something deeper behind her composed face. Not just duty, not just pride, fear. She feared what this law would mean. Maybe for herself, maybe for her people, or maybe for what she might begin to feel. Cade turned away. "I need rest." They gave him a small chamber aboard the station. Clean sheets, warm lighting, and medical drones that stitched his wounds while he slept. But his dreams were broken. Explosions. Fire. The elders. Blood on his hands. Rishara's voice in his ears saying, "I am yours." Again and again. As if the war had followed him into his mind. He woke to soft footsteps. Rishara stood in his doorway, now dressed in something simpler. No armor, just a dark blue robe tied at the waist. She looked less like a warrior and more like a prisoner walking to her fate. "I wanted to check your wounds," she said, not making eye contact. Cade sat up slowly. "Why me?" he asked, voice tired. "You're strong, you're proud. Why would your people make someone like you submit?" She didn't answer for a moment. Then she sat across from him and looked out the small window into space. "Our laws were written long ago when we were still tribal. They believed that such a sacrifice would ensure honor, loyalty, and peace. But today, I don't know if it means the same." He nodded slowly. "Do you want me to release you?" Rishara looked at him then. "If you do, I'll be free. But my people will see it as shame. They'll whisper that I was unwanted, that I failed to repay a life debt, that I brought dishonor." Cade leaned forward. "And if I don't release you?" Her fingers curled around her robe. "Then I must stay with you. Serve you. Walk with you. Even leave my people if you command it." Silence filled the room. Two people. Two worlds. One law that neither asked, for then Cade said quietly, "I don't want a servant." She replied in a whisper, "Then make me something else." Rishara's words stayed with him long after she left the room. "Then make me something else." He didn't know what that meant. A partner? A companion? A symbol of peace? Or something deeper that neither of them could speak yet. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about an old law anymore. Something was growing between them. Something neither war nor custom had planned. The next day, Cade walked into the council chamber. The Valari High Elders had summoned him. Rishara stood beside her father, who now sat upright though pale and weak. The room was full of whispers. Cade knew their eyes didn't just see a human. They saw a question, a risk, a symbol that could either unite or break them. An elder stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Human, your actions saved a Valari leader. That is truth. But your presence now binds us to chaos. Our people do not understand this bond. Some call it honor. Others call it invasion." Cade didn't flinch. "I didn't come here to invade. I came because someone needed saving." The elder narrowed her eyes. "Yet you stand with our bloodline's heir. You do not understand what that means to us." Rishara spoke before he could reply. "He does not need to understand. The law has spoken. I will stand beside him, as long as he chooses to keep me." A murmur passed through the council. Cade looked at Rishara. "And what if I say yes?" The elder's voice grew cold. "Then your name will be known throughout the stars, not as a hero, but as a claim. You will be tied to the Valari by law, by politics, by blood. You will be targeted, hunted, Feared. Rishara turned to him. You don't have to do this. Cade thought for a long moment. You said you'd be shamed if I let you go. She nodded once. Then I'm not letting you go. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Then the elder spoke again. So be it. But understand, human. Not everyone in this galaxy respects old laws. Some will want your head. Others, her hand. And they will use you both as tools for war. Rishara took his hand. It surprised him how soft her grip was, how steady. They left the chamber together. Alone in a quiet hallway, Rishara finally let out a breath she had held all morning. You didn't have to do that, she said softly. I did, he answered. Because you deserve to choose who you are, not be passed like a medal. They walked in silence, but their steps were closer now, side by side. Not strangers. Not lovers. Not yet. But something was changing. Later that evening, alarms echoed through the base. Lights flashed red. Soldiers ran down corridors. Cade grabbed a weapon and rushed to the command room. Rishara was already there, her hair tied back, armor gleaming. A Valeri officer shouted, One of our outer colonies has been attacked. Unknown fleet. Heavy losses. Civilians taken. Cade frowned. Was it the enemy we fought in the desert? No, Rishara said, her voice low. This is something new. Something worse. A transmission played. A shadowed figure appeared, his voice distorted. You gave your daughter to a human. Now we take your people, unless you surrender both of them to us. Cade stared at the screen. Who are they? Rishara's, hands clenched into fists. They are from the old clan's exiles. They see our bond as a threat to their bloodline power. Cade's eyes burned with resolve. Then they just made a bigger mistake than I did. Rishara turned to him, eyes wide. You're not backing down? He picked up his weapon. Not now. Not ever. Rishara stood before the strategy table, the holograms of burning colonies flickering before her. Her eyes didn't blink. Behind her, Cade remained silent, arms crossed, jaw tight. He hated standing still when people were screaming on those screens. Every second wasted meant more blood. And this time it wasn't a nameless war. This was personal. The enemy wanted them. The council argued behind them. Some said to run. Others said to send Rishara away to a hidden moon. None of them dared say it. But Cade heard it in their voices. They saw him as the spark that lit this fire. A human, now tied by law to one of their bloodline, had become a symbol of rebellion, a reason for the old enemies to rise again. Cade slammed his fist on the table. Enough! They attacked innocent people. This isn't about me, it's about cowards using fear to control you. An elder hissed back. You don't understand our history, human. These exiles do not bluff. They destroy to rewrite bloodlines. They seek to erase dishonor through death. Rishara turned slowly. Then we give them a reason to fear our survival. That evening, she met Cade on the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly outside the glass. Ships moved in the distance, preparing for battle. She didn't wear armor this time, just the deep blue robe again, the one she had worn when she came to him not as a warrior but as his. I've never been this scared, she admitted quietly. He looked at her, surprised. You hide it well? She gave a small smile. Valerie, women are trained to never show fear. But right now I wish I could just sit somewhere quiet, hold a cup of tea, and forget the galaxy is falling apart. He stepped closer. Then let's pretend for 5 minutes. She looked up. Pretend what? That you're not royalty, and I'm not the human who turned your life upside down. Just two people, watching stars. She hesitated, then leaned gently against him. I never hated humans, she said softly, but I never imagined one would be kind. I'm not kind, he replied. I'm just too stubborn to walk away. Their moment broke when a sharp alert blared across the intercom. Enemy vessel detected. Incoming at jump speed. Shields raised. Fighters scrambled. They rushed to the command bridge. The large screen showed a sleek, dark warship bearing no insignia. Just a red crest shaped like a shattered crown, the mark of the old clans. A voice crackled through the comms. "Surrender the girl and her human or we burn everything." Cade grabbed the comm unit. "Come get us." The enemy didn't wait. Missiles launched. The station shook. Fighters flew out in all directions. Screams and orders filled the bridge. Cade and Rishara moved like fire, she directing her pilots, he taking command of defense turrets. Outside, the battle looked like stars colliding. Explosions painted the sky, but inside the danger came closer. An enemy boarding pod pierced the side of the station. Valerie guards rushed to intercept. But these were not ordinary attackers. They wore black armor, and their weapons hummed with old energy, silent, ruthless, focused. Cade ran toward the breach. Rishara followed without question. They moved as one. He shot two in the hallway. She cut down a third with her curved blade. Then the rest of the team arrived, and the attackers pulled back. But not before one of them hissed words that froze Rishara's blood. "You are no longer Valeri. You are his. And that is your curse." Cade turned, but the attacker vanished into smoke. Back in the war room, Rishara stood in silence. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They think I am theirs to erase, and that you are the proof their world has changed." Cade walked up beside her. "Then let's make sure the galaxy remembers exactly what we are." The battle outside slowed, but it was not over. The enemy ship retreated just far enough to circle in the shadows like a predator waiting for weakness. On the station, damage crews worked without sleep, sealing hulls, repairing shields, and dragging the wounded out from smoke-filled corridors. But something was worse than the fire. Something had slipped in quietly. Doubt. Inside the council chamber, Rishara stood beside her father again. This time, her body was marked with bruises from battle. Her robe was torn near the shoulder, blood drying along the edge. Yet the council didn't speak of her strength. They questioned her choice. "You have made us a target," one elder snapped. "Our people whisper behind closed doors. They say you are cursed, that no Valeri should belong to a human." Cade stood in the back, arms crossed. He said nothing, not yet. He had seen this before. On Earth, in every war. The enemy wasn't always the one holding a gun. Sometimes it was the ones who smiled while holding a knife behind their back. Rishara answered coldly. "This law was not my creation. I followed it. And I will not be shamed for obeying a custom you all swore to protect." Her father tried to speak, his voice weak but firm. "The one who saved my life stands behind her. You will not dishonor him." Another elder stepped forward. His tone was low, slippery like oil. "And what if the human has changed her? What if he is the reason she no longer walks like a daughter of Valeri?" Cade finally stepped forward. "Say what you mean. You think I've controlled her? That I'm here to weaken your bloodline?" The elder smirked. "You misunderstand. We don't think you've weakened her. We think you've made her dangerous." The room grew quiet. Rishara's fingers tightened. Later, she paced the corridor outside, heart racing. Cade leaned against the wall watching her. "You heard them," she said. "They don't want peace, they want tradition. They'd rather see me sent to a temple, forgotten, than see me at your side." Cade nodded slowly. "I know that type. When power feels threatened, it calls it dishonor." She stopped. Then maybe it's time power felt real fear. That night, a whisper passed through the station. A traitor had disabled a security node. A squad of unknown warriors had slipped past the outer ring, disguised as refugees. The breach came not from outside, but inside. Cade and Rishara rushed toward the central garden where wounded civilians were kept. When they arrived, they found it burning. Valeri guards were dead. Families cried in silence, hiding under fallen trees and broken columns. Then Rishara saw her. A familiar face. Her cousin, a woman she grew up with, standing at the center of the flames holding a blade, dressed in the armor of the old clans. You shouldn't have come here, Rishara said, stepping forward. Her cousin didn't smile. You chose him. Now you choose death. Cade raised his weapon, but Rishara lifted a hand. No, she said. This is my fight. The two warriors clashed under the pale light of a burning sky garden. Blade met blade. Sparks flew. Rishara moved with speed and fury, but her cousin fought with bitterness, rage drawn from family pride and wounded honor. They had once been like sisters. Now they were enemies. Cade held back the other intruders. He fought like a wall of steel protecting the wounded. When Rishara's blade finally cut across her cousin's armor, sending her crashing to the ground, silence returned. Her cousin looked up, blood in her mouth. You've already lost. You just don't know it yet. Rishara stood over her, trembling. No, I'm just getting started. The station was quiet after the fight. Too quiet. Smoke still drifted from the broken garden ceiling. Rishara stood in the ruins, looking down at her cousin, now in custody, her armor cracked, her pride even more shattered. Cade stood beside her, blood on his knuckles, eyes scanning the wounded around them. The next morning, the council summoned them again, but this time it was not for judgment. It was for truth. Rishara's father sat in the center, pale but strong. His voice echoed across the room. I have been silent too long. I have allowed fear to grow in these walls. But now I speak, not as an elder, but as a father. He looked at Cade. The law that binds my daughter to you is older than most remember. But it was never meant to chain. It was meant to protect. The council leaned in. The law came from the days when our people faced extinction. A plague had swept through our kind. The only ones who helped us were outsiders, humans long ago who gave aid with no promise of reward. One of them saved a dying queen. The bond between them saved both worlds. In honor, she gave him her hand. That became our law. Rishara's eyes widened. That story was said to be myth. Her father nodded. It was buried. Because unity is dangerous to those who rule by division. Cade looked at Rishara. So we were never enemies, just separated by fear. Her father spoke again. That law was not just romantic, it was powerful. When a Valari gives herself to an outsider through that bond, it creates something rare. The ability to share instinct, to feel each other's danger, to fight as one. Cade blinked. You mean, yes, the elder said. That is why the exiles fear you. Together, you two are not just symbols. You are a weapon, a union they cannot control. Outside the chamber, whispers became storms. News of the attack and Rishara's victory had spread beyond the station. Ships began to arrive, not enemies but allies. Small Valari fleets from colonies that had once stayed silent. Civilian ships bringing support, food, aid. A signal was rising. The people had chosen their side. Cade stood in the hangar, watching as a group of young warriors saluted Rishara as she walked past. Not as a warrior, not as a noble, but as someone who stood for something greater than tradition. Later, Rishara met Cade in the weapon bay where he checked his gear. You could leave now, she said. Your part is done, you saved my father. You gave me honor, you don't owe us anything. He looked at her. You really think that's why I stayed? She walked closer. I don't know anymore. At first I thought it was duty, then protection. Now. He stepped toward her. Now what? She touched his chest. Now I think it might be something I was never taught to believe in. He placed his hand over hers. Then maybe we both learn it together. Before either could speak more, an officer ran in. Long-range scans show 3 exile fleets moving toward the station. Full strength, no messages, no warnings, just war. Rishara looked at Cade. They're coming to end us. He nodded. Then we make our stand. The two walked side by side through the corridor as alarms lit the walls. Valari and humans side by side prepared for battle. Ships powered up. Shields rose. No more running. No more silence. And in the heart of it all stood a human and a Valari warrior, tied not by a mistake, but by choice. The skies outside the Valari station darkened as the 3 exile fleets arrived. They came without warning, formation tight, weapons hot. Each ship carried the mark of the broken crown, the same ancient symbol that had hunted Rishara since the Iao day she bonded with the human. But now they didn't come to send a message. They came to end the bond forever. Inside the war room, the station shook under distant fire. Cade studied the battle map while Rishara stood beside him, her armor now marked with blue streaks. A new symbol etched over her chest plate. The crest of her house fused with something new. A human star. They'll try to break the command. Deck first, Cade said. They want us dead, but they need the people to see us fall. Rishara nodded. Then we make sure they see us rise instead. The council had evacuated. Most elders too old to fight had been moved to a nearby moon. Base. The station's defense now rested on those who chose to stay, not out of duty, but out of belief. Cade moved through the hangar as fighter pilots ran to their ships. Engineers shouted codes. Valari children, once kept hidden, were now helping, load medkits and ammo. Even the quiet ones had become brave. He climbed into the turret tower with a group of Valari gunners. One of them looked at him nervously. You are the one who claimed Our Lady. I didn't claim her, Cade replied. She chose to stand with me. The gunner smiled. Then we will stand with you both. Rishara prepared her strike team. She would lead the boarding resistance. They had one goal: take out the lead ship's core before the fleet could tear through the station's shields. As she slid her blade into its holster, she felt a flicker in her chest. Not pain, not fear, but something strange. A presence. It was Cade. Across the station, Cade paused. He felt it too. They were beginning to sink. The bond, once thought mythical, had started to awaken. As the enemy launched boarding pods, the station's cannons fired. Explosions lit the black sky. Fighters danced between fire and debris. Inside, corridors turned into war zones. The enemy wasn't just after power, they were after history. Rishara led her squad through a side shaft and breached the lead ship. Inside, the halls were darker, older, filled with silence that pressed against the skin. Her cousin, who had once called her cursed, now stood at the heart of the ship's command bridge. You still fight for him? The cousin asked coldly. I fight for choice, Rishara said, and I choose him. The blades clashed. Sparks flew. Rishara fought like wind and fire, her squad covering her back. As she dueled, Cade defended the station. Every time she bled, he felt a pull. Every time he fired, she felt a pulse. Finally, with a sharp strike, Rishara disarmed her cousin, but the woman laughed through bloodied lips. It's too late, we planted cores across your station, your bond ends in fire. Back on the station, Cade heard the alert. Explosives, hidden in vents, designed to tear the heart of the base apart. He ran toward the core chamber, blood pounding in his ears. Behind him, Valari guards followed without question. Reaching the central core, Cade saw the flashing timer. He had minutes. Can you disarm it? One shouted. Cade stared at the alien tech. I can try. He reached out. As he touched the wires, a second presence entered his mind, Rishara. She was still on the enemy ship, but he could feel her heartbeat. And then, her voice. Cut the blue coil near the second chamber. I see it too. He followed her instinct. The timer slowed, then stopped. He fell back, breathless. The room clapped around him. Rishara stood in the enemy bridge, sword raised. Her cousin defeated, their bond now undeniable. Across space and fire, the human and the warrior had stopped but the war wasn't over yet. The enemy flagship shook violently as Rishara gave the command to retreat. The remaining warriors dropped their weapons and surrendered, their fear written in their eyes. They had not expected her to survive. They had not expected her to win. But most of all, they had not expected her to become more than just a royal. They had not expected her to become legend. Back on the Valari station, Cade stood beneath the large glass dome, watching the stars return to stillness. The explosions had faded. The fires were out. The wounded were being cared for, and the civilians who once feared his presence now offered him nods of respect. One child even saluted him. Rishara returned an hour later, stepping off the shuttle that brought her back from the enemy vessel. Her armor was cracked, her hair messy, and her eyes tired, but they locked on Cade the second she stepped into view. They didn't run into each other's arms. They didn't need to. They walked slowly, meeting in the middle of the quiet hall. The weight of war still hung around them, but something else had taken its place. Something unspoken, but strong. "You saved the station," Rishara said softly. "You saved the war," Cade replied. "I only did what I had to," she added. He looked into her silver eyes. "So did I." The council met once more. This time they did not sit in high towers. They sat in a wide open hall, surrounded by warriors, civilians, engineers, and even children. The people had gathered, not to obey, but to witness. Rishara stepped forward. "The war is over. Not because we crushed our enemy, but because we chose a different path. The old bloodlines feared this bond," she said, gesturing to Cade, "because it threatened their control. But we are proof that peace is stronger than fear." Some of the elders nodded. Others stayed silent, but none argued. Cade spoke next. "I didn't come here to lead. I didn't come here to rule, but I won't walk away either. Because something bigger than me started here, and I'm not letting it break." After the assembly, Rishara and Cade stood alone in the upper gardens where once fires had raged. Now new flowers grew, brought from distant colonies as a symbol of unity. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small metal ring. It was not traditional, not made of gold or gems. It was forged from the same material as the station walls, strong, scarred, real. "This is not a royal gift," she said. "It's mine. I made it for you if you want it." He took it slowly. "You sure this is what you want?" Rishara stepped closer. "This time, no law forces me. No custom binds me. This is my choice." He smiled gently and placed the ring on his hand. Then he pulled out a necklace he had worn beneath his armor, a simple piece of thread tied with a star-shaped bead. "I found this when I first landed on your world. Didn't know what it meant, but I kept it. I guess I was waiting for a reason." He placed it around her neck. They stood like that for a long time, the galaxy spinning quietly above them. Two lives, once strangers. Now something more. Later, stories would spread. The human who saved a dying elder. The warrior woman who stood beside him. The two who defied tradition not with war, but with unity. Some would call it a myth. Others would call it fate. But for Cade and Rishara it was simple. It was home.